Hello everybody, bonjour à tous, bienvenue à Belgahai. Aujourd'hui, on a un entretien avec Daniel Kötter. Et notre entretien va être en anglais, mais laisse-moi présenter en arménien aussi. Բարև գտններ, այսօր Belgahai-ի մեջ եթերում պիտի ունենանք Daniel Kötter-ը, Daniel Kötter դոկումենտարիստն է, որ Հայաստանում էր Արցախյան պատերազմի ժամանակ այնտեղ արձանագրություններ գրավ եւ այսօր Բոզար իրեն ֆիլմը գրնակ դիտել ժամը 7-ին։ Ուրեմն եւ մենք անգլերեն պիտի շարունակենք։ So, I shortly presented in French and Armenian a bit longer. You know, everything is longer in Armenian.
I know. One of the reasons I like that country.
Yeah, okay. So, as I mentioned, I wanted to also tell people that tonight they can, let me tell in English, tonight there is a documentary. There is a documentary at Bozar that they can watch. Yeah, it's a last minute call, but we knew each other before. We contacted before with Daniel, but we weren't able to had this interview and talk yet. So it was today in a last minute call, but I'm so happy to see you in Brussels and to be able to watch your movie, watch your documentary. So first of all, Daniel, can you tell us about yourself a bit? And can you tell us when did you shoot the film? How did it started this project? And it is the first time in Brussels, no? It is the first screening in Brussels, I think.
This film tonight will be the screening tonight will be the Belgian premiere of the film, indeed, yes. The film premiered last year in April in Vision du Réel Festival, and since then is traveling several festivals. And the people from Beaux-Arts know my work. They screened other film before. And so they invited the film for the Belgian premiere tonight. My name is Daniel Kötter, as you already said, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. I also make theater and music theater, but I'm focusing mainly on questions of political space. So I did a number of films on urbanization processes. I worked in the region. I did two films in Iran. I did films in Egypt, Lebanon. I never worked in the Caucasus, so Landschaft is the first film I do in that part of the region. And it was actually by invitation for an open research that I went to Armenia. I mean, it was a country that always fascinated me from far without me having traveled there. And then I got to know Sona Karapokosyan. She's a film curator of the Golden Apricot Film Festival, Yerevan. And she asked me and invited me for an open research to come to Armenia. And at that time, I was working on a series of films on mining also. So I was just traveling around Armenia, looking at the different mining areas. And I mean, the invitation came at the beginning of 2020. So in the meantime, the war had happened. And during the research, we arrived to this specific area between Sevan Lake and Sotk gold mine. It was no longer only about mining, obviously, but it was also about a different approach to landscape and to land. And this was the moment when it became a film for me, actually, because I went to Armenia just to look around and see, and I didn't have the intention to make a film. But then when we came to this area first time in March 2021, so only three months after the war ended or halted, it was clear for me that I would like to make a film in this region.
And first of all, I want to hear about your observations when you arrived there. What did you see? How did it develop? Because It was a hard time, and actually, after that, I want to ask, how did you emphasize, and how did you find what's happening in there? Because many times, when you were there that time, many Armenians were thinking that, okay, West is not, they don't understand us. The journalists, especially, for example, they don't get it. They don't understand, and they will leave it, etc. But I work with documentaries a lot in my job. So even Turkish documentarists or etc. It doesn't matter the nationality, but the documentarists are, you have another eye, you have another objective. So you see many things that a journalist or a photographer don't see. And in the teaser of the movie, I see that. I understood. I get it. I get it, because the scene that you put, that we will watch a bit later, it is a car, a Lada, is going into the fields, and the guy is talking about his homeland. It's not ours anymore. It's etc. etc. To be able to get that sentence as a documentarist, it gives me the idea. Okay, you understood us, but that time, as you said, it's the first time that you're working in Caucasus. How did it happen? How did it develop when you were in the area? And what
Yeah.
did you see? So it's a general question, but I want to get as much as information from you before the screening.
No, of course, of course. So as you already said, the way I work is not the way a journalist usually works. So I'm more like of an artistic documentarist. That means I also come with a different time approach and with a different visual approach. And for me, what was striking in this specific region, in around Vardenis,
Hmm.
was that this area is surrounded on three sides by mountains. And after 2020, all mountains were controlled by Azerbaijan.
Hmm.
And on top of it, the airspace was controlled by drones during the war and after the war by
Hmm.
Azerbaijan.
Hmm.
So this created a situation that for me as a filmmaker is as sad as it is interesting, which means all the people living there that are not in power, that are not making decisions on a political level, that are not involved in geopolitics, they
Hmm.
are being seen sort of by the enemy without being able to see the enemy. So this kind of visuality. So which is already part of the shape of the landscape, because it's this plain where they're doing growing potatoes and they're surrounded on three sides by mountains. So this situation was something that made me start it. And then, of course, I'm a German filmmaker. I've not been to Armenia before that project.
Hmm.
So who am I to tell the story of Armenia? So I mean, I of course make my research, but I was really relying on building up a network of Armenians. In the end, I am the only non-Armenian who's involved in the making of this film, and it's not only my film; it's the film of a lot of Armenians who put their stories and put their time and efforts in this film. So I was lucky to work very closely with mainly four people, which is Sona Karapagosyan, Nuna Hovanesyan. Both of them are film people. Armin Papian, who's a sound recordist and sound engineer, and especially the anthropologist Evia Hovanesyan, who had studied that region and lived in that region for a long time and wrote her PhD on this region. So she could sort of translate to me
Hmm.
the situation of the people, not only the language, but also the situation, the perspective of those people. And she could contact me with a lot of people. And because of her, these people would also trust me. So what I decided to do is not to do classical journalistic interviews with people, sit down with a translator, me asking questions, having it
Yeah.
translated, having an answer translated, but to let Armenians speak with Armenians. So I just arranged situations like people going for a walk. I gave them microphone and they were just talking very naturally. Most of the time, even without my presence during the recording of those conversations. And that, I think, gave people also the trust to have a very natural, very intimate conversation about what they are experiencing, which is very different from a journalistic interview with translation, where,
Yeah.
because I mean, of course, after the war, especially in that region, and I think until today, there was a lot of mistrust, a lot of fear. Actually, I mean, fear was the main experience that I could see in the people. Fear, but of course also the struggle for everyday life. And as we know, after what happened in Artsakh, um, those people were again opening their doors and houses for the refugees. So it's this kind of things that I experienced and that made me interested and also very empathic with the situation, I have to say.
In general, when you were there, we will watch the film. Of course, I invite everybody to come tonight at Bozar to be able to watch the film. But uh, there are always something that we see, we watch in the documentary or we watch in the movie, but there are lots of things that are not recordable. It stays with the realizator, it stays with you, producer, because you experience the feeling, the people. As you said, now, if you don't tell me, I will never understand that if you were there in the recording or no. But you're telling that you were letting people to speak Armenian to Armenian at the translator. So what is happening, etc. This is a way to let people to talk and then to try to understand. But of course, from the body language, probably you were understanding what was going on in between these two people, or three or four, the crew. uh, I want to ask, what stayed with you? What was the feeling with you? Because, or let me figure it out like this. Uh, on the back stage, what was happening, and were there some stuffs that you weren't able to put in? You weren't able to put in the video, in the documentary, because there are sometimes they're telling their stories, but there is not enough. It's not in the concept, etc. And another question that is about: did you had difficulties while working in there, and how long did it take? How long were you there?
I mean, the last question is the easiest, obviously.
Yeah.
I was there 5 times over the course of 14 months. I never counted together how much time I spent on location, but probably 3, 4 months, like 3.5 months, something like this. But between March 2021 and April 2022. So I was there also in different stages, and of course the mood had changed a little bit in these 14 months. But in general, I mean, of course, it's always a decision what to put into the film and what is not representable. I mean, first of all, for me, it's sometimes more important what you're not showing in a film than what you're actually showing. And I decided from quite the very beginning that I will not show war. I will not show the mine. I mean, of course, the mine is run by, or was run because now it's closed, um, is by a Russian company, and they were very sensitive and very aggressive also. They would not want to let me film in the mine. So it was clear that I could not show the causes of the
Mhm.
violent causes of the situation of the people. This would be left out. So the viewer of the film has to figure out where does it come from. I mean, it becomes clear in the course of watching the film that it's about war and extractivism, but I preferred to stay with the people. Another thing that I decided not to show, I mean, a lot of filmmakers nowadays like to work with drone footage because it's spectacular, it's beautiful, and especially if
Yeah.
it's about the landscape. But for me, it was very clear. I mean, those people in their conversations, they're talking about being attacked by drones and being afraid of drones all the time. So, I mean, it would be really like a treason of against the people if I would use drone footage myself. So I decided to stay with on eye level with the people with my camera all the time. But then, of course, also in the conversation, I mean, I had 50 hours of conversation material that was transcribed and translated to me afterwards. And of course, there are a lot of things that I had to think about if I want to include it or not. I mean, first of all, I wanted also to protect the people and show them from their vulnerable side in the first place. So there was, of course, I mean, you can imagine in the situation a lot of very nationalist comments um, that are, from their perspective, are maybe understandable, but in this film, it would give a wrong image also to the world, I think, of the people. So I left some of these things out. And of course, there are sensitive things, and when I showed the film in the Golden Apricot Film Festival in Yerevan, there were very diverse reactions because I included some stories, some memories of people of the time they were. This area was also inhabited by Azerbaijani people, and how on an everyday life basis they would actually live together, which I found very important to show that it's possible to live together if it's only about the people, and not about geopolitical interests. But for some people, this was sort of because the situation was and still is so sensitive and vulnerable that they were afraid that any mentioning even of the Azerbaijani past of this era, of the population living there, could give any reasons to Aliyev to claim this region, which I totally understand is a super sensitive topic. So all of these stories, it was very important for me to think and also discuss with my Armenian collaborators what to include and what not to include. So yes, I mean, of
Daniel,
course,
just a little
yeah,
parenthesis.
yeah.
Since that you mentioned it, I want to ask: did your idea about Caucasus changed after your visit, or you already had an image and it fitted in it after all these months? Because you said you visited 5 times now, and it took
Six,
long
six.
time, and you see the change during the war, etc., the mentality. But you know the people has sometimes the image that okay, Caucasus is like this, Middle East is like this, etc., etc., but uh, did it change in your mind something, or you had an idea and it fitted in it before?
No, of course. Just a second. Okay. It's always like this, You have sort of stereotypes in your head, before you go to a place, because I mean, all you know is from the media. And for me, I never trust the stereotypes and the images that I have in my head. I worked a lot also on the African continent, and there are also so many stereotypes of Westerners or Europeans about that region. So of course, there were some ideas and some cliches that I knew, and then I start getting to know people. I start eating the food, which is always very important. So I read more in the course of this project about the region. So I understood the history much better. I understood also the complexity.
Mhm.
I mean, the problem is the world is big, and you can only have a very simple idea about the different parts of the world. And then you go there and you understand it's much more complex. This is one thing. So I have a much more complex idea about the region now, that it's not single-sided, never, this kind of conflict regions. And the second thing that has changed dramatically for me before and after is empathy, I have to say, because whenever I go to a place and I start getting to know people, understanding and trying to assume the perspective of these people, I get empathic. But in other films, I mean, it's always when I make a film, I get empathic with the situation on the ground, but it never happened as much as it has happened with this film. I don't know if it will show in the film or not, but I can say privately or personally that I became very empathic with the people of that region. And whenever something is happening there, I try to ask, "Are you okay? Is everything fine?"
No,
Yeah,
which is normal, but the,
yeah.
what I want to also, maybe it's a last concluding question, but also ask, you did you get the feeling sometimes that during the war, not just this war, in every war, when you are doing documentaries in there, people are always like, are you from my side or the other side? They always try to understand if you are in which side you're thinking. But for documentarists, on the name, it's you're documenting something, you know. But emotionally it's impossible while people are living in there. For them, I'm a journalist and my name is Aris, so that it's always Armenian. It's always there is no way to understand in the other side. uh, that's something. But since that you're neither Armenian, neither the side of the conflict, you're from nowhere for these people. Did you have the feeling that people are pushing more about this to understand which side you are, or did you had difficulties, let's say difficulties, I mean, while you're working on the field or while you're screening your film? Because when you're screening, of course, you shoot something in Armenian side, so maybe Azerbaijani side, maybe other sides, they're reacting, I don't know, maybe they're protesting, I don't know, because it's the first screening in Belgium, but you already showed your film in other places. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, of course, I had difficulties. I mean, I told you that I was working with this anthropologist, so
Yeah.
people were trusting me basically, but they constantly were joking. We know you're a spy and you're with Azerbaijan and so on. But I mean, I would always tell them, I'm here with you. I'm filming here with you. I'm not filming on the other side. But the question in every conflict is like, who's telling where the sidelines are? You know. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm not. It's for me. It's not about being with the Azerbaijanis or with the Armenians. For me, it's about being with the people who decide on war or being with the people who suffer from war. And this film decided to be with the people who suffer from war. And I know that there are also in Azerbaijan there are people who suffered from war, and I would be empathic with those people too. I cannot be empathic with people who have an aggression, a military aggression on other people. This is clear.
Yeah, but for you,
So
for
and
example, as a documentarist, sorry, I'm saying it because
yes,
even as Armenian, for example, while I was working in the border in the 4-day war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, I was working. I went to the border villages, even in Georgian side. Okay, to understand, I wanted to shoot the other side too that time.
yeah,
Also, I applied to Azerbaijani side because I'm Turkish citizen, so maybe I can go. But because my name is Armenian, even my surname is Turkish, they didn't allow me. Anyway, but I tried. You know, you want to see. It doesn't matter. It's because I'm Armenian. I don't have to be all the time in the one side because I want to document and talk to people because I was sure people thinks different than states and military. I was sure that in the villages in Azerbaijan, maybe they are thinking in the other way. I don't know, but officially, as a journalist, I wanted to go that side.
mm.
So, did you ever thought about it? Okay, I'm shooting in this side, but I have to maybe go to the other side. Or did you try it, or was it the aim, or in whole project, or what? Or maybe you're going to do it in the future. I don't know. I'm just asking, throwing the question.
Yes, is two things. I mean, first of all, in the beginning of the project, I thought I would shoot from both sides. I knew it would be logistically and like in terms of permission and politically very, very difficult. And it would maybe have been impossible anyway to do for me because once the Azerbaijani authorities would know I've been to Armenia, they would not let me in, and for sure would not let me film. But as I said before, at some point the film became more an allegoric film about people, about this very specific landscape and the people living there
Hmm.
rather than a film on this geopolitical conflict. So it was for me important to stay with those people and not try to get the other perspective. But uh, I tried to do two things. The first was I showed the film in Tbilisi, and the Q&A was with an Armenian and an Azerbaijani. and there were a lot of Azerbaijanis in the audience, and we had a very interesting conversation from both sides. So it was interesting to see that in Georgia, a meeting and a discussion is possible. Then I showed, as I mentioned, the film in Golden Apricot. We had very controversial discussions about the film in Yerevan, and I had submitted the film to Baku, the documentary film festival in Baku. The festival selected the film and wanted to show it, and the Cultural Ministry of Azerbaijan banned the film. So
when was this?
This was now the festival was last October, I think.
So there is another gate is opening in my mind that festivals selected this film.
Yes.
And the ministry banned it.
Exactly. Okay. So cultural people wanted to show this film. I was in touch with the organizers of the Baku Festival. They were very excited about the film and wanted to discuss it and thought it's important to discuss it, but the authorities banned the film.
So Daniel, thank you. Since that they can watch this film now, today, at Beaux-Arts, I'm happy. 7 p.m. I am happy to be able to see it, since that it is not going to be able to seen in Baku or anyway. But you have a plan. I think the film is going to go to travel some other countries. Can you tell us where you're going to broadcast also?
I mean, the film has traveled already widely, a lot in Germany, but also interesting enough in the Balkan region on several festivals, because obviously ex-Yugoslavian people feel related to the Caucasus region very strongly. It has been also in Canada and in Indonesia and quite a few places. It was just last week in FIPA Doc in Biarritz, the biggest documentary film festival in France. So it was a bit around, and I'm waiting for some confirmation. I know some festivals that will show the film, but they didn't publish their program, so I'm not allowed to say. But yes, I hope the film will still make its way, and I hope the film will also go back for more screenings to Armenia. But we still have to organize this.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel, for this interview, and see you tonight in there. Let's conclude the interview. If you allow, I will show the teaser for our viewers, but our listeners can listen. The teaser is Armenian, so I think it can be a little also pleasure and plus for them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Aris. See you tonight.
See you.
Etin şakını kam sağ
Filming
Ha?
Film.
Benim te bana soğukta Türkiye'ne kazınım.
Մենք մենք կինո ենք անում։
Ես սահմանամեզ գոտում եմ որ գիտեք։ Ստեյ բնակիչեմ հայ, մեսի Հայաստանի Հանրապետության հողա։ Փախստական Ադրբեջան բնակվում եմ արդեն 30 տարի բնակ։ Հիմա այս շուխորը որ ընկել է, այս ինչ ուզում են հասնեն բան։ Հիմա ուզում եմ իմանամ, եթե տես բան կա, ես ուզում եմ, եթե ազգությամբ ես հայ եմ, եթե ես հայ հող չի, եթե քարտեզով բանով հայ հողա, ուրեմն ուզում եմ մնամ ստե։ Եթե չէ, եթե իսկական թուրք քարտեզով, պապական, մեկ բանանեք հրաժեշտան կնակ, այդ եմ, ինձ այդ ճիշտ պատասխանապ, եթե հայ եմ մնակ, եթե չէ, այդ մի պատասխանապ, այդ եմ ուզում ցավը։